What's up, people? If you are watching this video, then you're either fairly new to car audio or completely new to car audio, or you're just entertained by people who talk about car audio, in which case we can handle all three of you guys. So welcome to the Car Audio Enthusiast channel, and I'm going to today talk about the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts, and the whys and reasons in installing and designing and planning your new car audio system. The first thing you want to do is decide what kind of system you are wanting to build, because all car audio systems are not the same. Just like all balls are made for different sports and they're not the same, all car audio systems are different as well. Are you wanting to build a car audio system that is extremely loud, that breaks windows, that makes your hair blow around, wakes up the neighbors and gets the cops called on you? That's one category. That's usually what they call a street beater. Are you wanting to build a car audio system that is also all those things, but can also make high numbers on the SPL lanes and compete in SPL competitions? Sound pressure level, extreme amounts of bass. That's another category. Then there's the SQ category, which is what I typically fall into. That's where you want to have the system that puts you in the middle of a concert or a club and sounds like you're listening to a live band, and the music is absolutely perfect. The imaging is perfect. The staging is perfect. Everything is presented to you out in front of you. Spatial orientation is on point. The perfection is just everywhere. That's another category. Or are you just wanting a good sounding stereo to listen to while you're cruising around? Maybe want a little more bass, maybe a little bit more volume. All of these are completely different setups, but they all have a few things in common. So we're going to talk about, in the beginning here, the things that they all have in common. One is you need a source unit. You can use your factory stereo for a source unit. You can also use aftermarket stereo as a source unit. You could use your phone as a source unit. You don't even need a stereo in some cases. But you're going to need a piece of equipment that provides the information for the whole system to play. So for most people, in most situations, that's going to be some kind of stereo system. If you're listening to this video, odds are you're going to go pretty traditional. Traditional is going to be a single DIN or a double DIN head unit. You put that in your dash, replace the factory system that you have, and now you have something that you can add to much more easily. There's some caveats to that, though. When you're looking at a very, very new vehicle, for one, you may not want to replace the head unit that's in there because it's really good, or because it's so new you just don't want to change it. I get it. Or, more likely, because it has stuff built into it that you literally need to be able to access in your vehicle. Some of your modern stereo systems have got the whole HVAC system built into them. They've got the controls for their heated seats and lighting and all kinds of stuff built into their stereo system. Can we get around that problem? In most cases, yes. In most cases, there's an aftermarket equivalent that will get you all that you're looking for. It's going to cost money, though. And the newer that vehicle is, the newer that technology is, and the newer that design for that new integration technology is, the more expensive it's going to be. So it works out that if your car is really, really new and your stereo is really, really new, it's probably better to keep that stereo, because trying to get all the stuff that you need to make it work and make all the stuff work that you would lose is going to cost you a lot, But at the same time, that stereo is probably not terribly bad. Having said that, these are thoughts and decisions you have to make deciding how you want to proceed in this hobby. If you choose to keep the factory stereo system, there are still going to be some integration items that you're going to have to do depending on how deep down the rabbit hole you go. If you're just going to add a subwoofer to an existing stereo and use the stereo that's there to amplify the speakers that are there, just give it a little bit more bottom end, and you don't already have a subwoofer in there, then you'll need to get some sort of line output converter, find a source that's got a good subfrequency on it, like one of your channels that you've already got, get that signal off of there, convert it to a line level signal so you can send that to your amplifier. That's going to be something like an LOC. That's the very basics for that. There's also a lot of amplifiers that will actually take what they call a speaker level input or a high level input, which is the same signal you're sending to that speaker that's already in there. As long as there's a good solid bass frequency available to grab from that signal that you can amplify, you can use that as your input. And then you just put in a small amplifier and a subwoofer somewhere, and Bob your uncle, you got bottom end. That's the basic part. Now, if you want a better version of that, then you would add something like a basic DSP. And the thing about adding a DSP is you're also going to be adding at least one amplifier. But my recommendation would be to go to start out with a 5-channel amplifier. And either a 5-channel amplifier with a DSP built into it, or a 5-channel amplifier and a DSP. And it doesn't matter, again, it doesn't matter what you're going to do and what path you're taking after this. We're still on the all paths part of this. Let me explain why a 5-channel amplifier. To start out with a basic stereo system, just your run-of-the-mill system, you can use all 5 channels. You can use 4 of those channels to amplify your corners that are already there, 1, 2, 3, and 4, like your left, right, front, your left, right, rear. The 5th channel to amplify a sub. If you want to go to more SQ at some point, really build in some serious sound, you can move all 4 of those channels to the front and use 1 and 2 for tweeters and 3 and 4 for mids. If you want to add a center channel to your dash and your SQ system, you could use that 5th channel as a center channel and then add another subwoofer in. If you don't want to add a center channel, you can still use that 5th channel as a small hidden sub that's up front, and then get a dedicated subwoofer, bigger subwoofer amp and sub for the back. It can grow with you, is what I'm saying. You can turn that 5-channel amp into a 4-channel amp, or you can bridge the channels often and turn it into a 2-channel amp. It can do so much, and it will be the gift that keeps giving. And then whenever you've completely and totally outgrown it in that vehicle, you can move that 5-channel amp to somebody else's car, and now they have a whole system amplified from one piece of equipment. It's an easy swap over, an easy piece of equipment to find a home. And since it's so versatile, it's what I say everyone should start with. I'm going to link one that's really inexpensive, and it's the Recoil 5-channel amp that I've linked before. I'm going to link that one in this video for you guys. This would be a great starting point. It's not very expensive, and it gives you the option of having 5 channels of amplification, a good solid foundation for any system you're going to build. Okay, I mentioned the DSP. A digital signal processor is like the control center for everything. If you've got your band on stage, you got your video guy shooting video, you got your laser guy, your pyro guy, you got your sound engineer, all these things happening in a concert. Well, that DSP is the conductor for that whole system. It's what makes everything work together. That was a really big, broad statement. I'll be more specific. Digital signal processor gives you, let me rephrase that. The digital signal processor usually, because they're all slightly different, most all of them, though, will do these basic things. They'll give you the ability to time align the signals from each output. So if you've got a left and a right mid and a left and a right tweeter and a subwoofer and a setup, it'll allow you to delay the speaker's signal that's the closest to you so that the one furthest from you can catch up, so that the signals both get to you at the same time, giving you a much more centered feel. It makes everything feel like it's more spatial and more properly distanced from you. Instead of having the left channel stuff right beside you and the right channel stuff far away, you'll feel more like you're in the middle. It'll also make everything clearer and cleaner and make everything click tighter and sound better. That's time alignment. Then you'll have the ability to equalize each individual channel by itself. Whenever you're sitting in a car, okay, the stuff that's on the left of you, those signals are going to sound completely different than the signals on the right that are coming from way over here. The sound is going to get to you. They'll be both producing the same thing normally, but when they get to your ears, they're not going to sound the same. One may have, like, for example, over here on the left side, your highs may be getting cut because there's a piece of the car or a piece of you in between your ear and the tweeter. Okay? So your highs are getting muffled over here. And there also might not be as much bass in the door that you can hear from that spot. Being able to equalize each channel means that you can make each channel sound the same where you're sitting at, no matter where they're located in the car. So you can time align them to where they get to you at the same time, and then you can equalize each one so that each one sounds the same to your ears in the driver's seat. Again, this helps to put you in the middle of the sound field and not off to one side of it. The digital signal processor also allows you to set your crossover points and change them and set the slopes. And what that means is your crossover points are where different drivers do their job and hand off the job to the next driver. So your woofer may play from 20 hertz to 80 hertz, and then it will quickly drop down into where it's not playing anything, and your mid-range will pick up at 80 hertz and will start fading in, so that when the two of them, as the woofer's dropping off, the mid's picking up, and that 20 to 2,000, 3,000 hertz, you never lose anything there. The signal is constant and level. And that point at which the woofer drops and the mid-range catches on, that's the crossover. It's crossing over and handing off its job. It's like a relay race. And the DSP has those built into it as well. That said, a lot of factory stereo systems, or a lot of aftermarket stereo systems will have a crossover points built into them. They'll also have time alignment built into them. I haven't seen one yet that would allow you to equalize each channel individually. That's a big deal. There are some more features that are in these DSPs, but most of the stuff that you'll work with are those three elements. Now, what's cool about it is, let's say that your stereo has some of those features. I don't need it. My stereo has some of those features. Okay, fine. Maybe you don't need those features. But as soon as you change stereos, now well, crap, I don't have that no more. Now I've got to get. If you get a DSP, it'll always have a home. No matter what stereo you put in, no matter what you hook up to it, you're always going to have a known piece of territory that you've been to many times before. You know how to work everything in it. You know all the little quirks. You know how everything in there works and exactly how to do the job. And you're working with that familiar piece of equipment over and over and over again. Whereas with these other things, you're working with different stuff. You don't know what you're getting. You have to start over every time. Having something that can go from build to build to build and keep giving you that love, a DSP is a big thing. Having a DSP and a 5-channel right up front will set you up for success so quickly. Now, having said that, there's where do you spend the money? What do you spend the money on? Because right now my budget is this, right? I got this much budget and I want this much stuff. So what do I emphasize? Well, my personal theory is the harder something is for me to get to, the harder it is to get to, the more value I put on the equipment that I put there. That makes sense? For example, running wiring in the car. If you run the wiring well and you run it neatly and you do an extremely good job of it, you're probably going to be pulling your front seats and picking up that carpet or even taking it out and running all the wiring and then putting it all back in. But at the very minimum, you're going to have to tuck and hide and pull interior panels up and hide that wire all through there. And then once you get it all in there, then it's there, right? I don't want to go through that process with some crap that I'm going to have to replace or some crap that's not going to work very well or might break on me or not. Now, I want to put good stuff any place that's hard to get to. If your door panels, if you're in a factory vehicle, you got door panels hard to get off. When you have those door panels off, put the money in there. Put good equipment in there. Put sound deadener in there. Do all the things to that door the first time. That way when you put that panel back on, unless you blow up something, you won't ever have to go back in there. Because the less times you pull that door panel off, the better. And that reminds me of another tip. Before you even start, go on Amazon, look up the door clips, the little plastic Christmas tree door clips for your door panels. Find those on Amazon and order a 50-count bag of them. Just go ahead and order them. It ain't going to be but, $5-10 or whatever. Trust me, you will break them, you will damage them, and then you'll be fighting that and fighting that and fighting that. When you pull that door off, if those little clips have any damage on them, if they're not perfect, pull them out, replace them. Don't put any broke ones back in. Don't put any damaged ones back in because it's just going to have to come back off again. And you're going to be replacing some again. And then you're going to damage some more. And then you're not going to have enough. And you'll be looking for them. Like I said, just order a 50-count bag and call it good. When you put your door speakers in, put at least sound deadener around the door speaker location on the metal, and at least some sound deadener on the outside skin of the door behind that speaker. At least. And then bump the door around with your hand and listen for anything on that door that makes a noise. Chase it down. Put some kind of tape on it, some padded tape, some medical tape, some fuzzy, thick, fluffy things, whatever. Tie a freaking piece of yarn around it. Just stop all the little rattles. Kill everything. Whenever you bump that door, you don't want to hear nothing but you hitting the door. You don't want to hear any shakes, any vibrations, or any rattles. Solve that problem now. And then a better version of that same tech is to go ahead and sound deaden as much of the interior of that door and the outer skin of that door as you can, as well as chase down all the rattles. Like I said, once you put the thing back together, you don't want to have to take it back apart. And sound deadening at least those two front doors is going to make a huge difference. So you got your 5-channel amp, and you got your sound deadener in your doors. That's the start. Put good drivers in the doors. Replace those. That's next on the list, is those front drivers. And then be realistic about what subwoofer situation you're going to do. If you're going into a big SPL build, then you're going to be running big power wire, lots of it. I wouldn't even start that without running at least 2 runs of alt gauge power all the way from the front to the back. But most of the people that's doing this aren't going to be going that route. And for most builds that you're going to be doing, I'm going to put a link down to a kit over on Recoil that has a really solid wiring kit that's going to be more than most people are going to need. Besides the extreme SPL people, this kit will handle most stereo systems. If you're looking at something that's 4,000 watts total or less, realistic RMS power, this will handle that no problem. And most people are going to be way below that. So if you don't know what to buy, you don't know what wires you need, you just want to make sure that you have what will do the job, and you have everything. This is a great kit. It's like $240, but it gives you everything that you're going to need to wire up the system outside of the stereo harness to put the stereo itself in. All the amplifiers or whatever, it's going to be future-proof. You won't have to worry about doing anything extra unless you go crazy with power. So I talked about the sound deadening, the basic stuff. Starter amplifier, the 5-channel, which is a good starter amplifier. Talked a little bit about head units and about how to get that signal from the head unit out. And for head units, I recommend that you go to Crutchfield and fill out the little car information box, and then let it search for head units that'll fit in your car. It'll also recommend wiring harnesses and mounting and installation equipment for the head unit for your car. You want to get all that. Just whatever they say, you should get this, just go ahead and put it in your inventory. Just get all that. If you don't know anything, or if your information is more than 10 years old, if your mental information is more than 10 years old, take everything they offer. If they say you're going to need these tools, get those too. Get everything. Don't skip on nothing. I got. No. Just go ahead and get it. And then that Saturday or Sunday, when you've got 6 hours to put this thing in and you brag it all out, get it all scattered everywhere, you actually have all the crap that you need to put it in, and you're not missing one thing that the store is closed and you can't get one. Trust me. Take everything they say take, get it all. And order the 50 count bag of those door panel clips. When it comes to wire, you don't really need a big speaker wire, but I like to use a heavier gauge speaker wire than I need because it's less likely to get damaged during the installation or during use. It's also easier to work with as far as the terminals on it, stripping it and hooking it up and all that. It tends to be easier to work with and tends to be more durable. But consider thicker, heavier gauge wire if you're trying to pull it into your doors. You're trying to bypass your factory wiring. It's going to be a lot harder to get in through that boot to go into your doors. What's a better solution for 90% of people is taking a piece of 9-wire, which is a 9-conductor wire. It's got 4 sets. It's got 8 wires plus 8 speaker wires plus a 9th wire, essentially. You run that from the speaker out on your 5-channel amp up to the area where your head unit is, or wherever your little factory amplifier is, depending on wherever your speaker wires all come to get amplified. And you use that 9-wire to take all those wires and attach those to your existing factory wires. And then that allows the factory wires to continue to run to where they run, and you pick them all up right behind the head unit or wherever it is. That gives you just one wire to run, and you don't have to worry about, messing with all that. And then later on, if you want to go back to totally factory, you just rehook up those factory wires and you're done. You know, it's real simple. Now we're back to, I'm just, again, guys, this is advice. This is thought process. This is how to get through this. We're back to subwoofers. Now this is where things start to really deviate quite a bit. With wiring, it's the same across the board, except whenever you're going hardcore SPL or super loud, you're going to need more power wire and more ground wire and more power wires. You're going to have multiple amps. You may actually add extra batteries. You may be adding extra alternators. The point is, it's just more of the same thing. But if you're not going that route, you're probably at a point where you're trying to decide whether I want a sealed subwoofer enclosure, do I want a ported box, do I need 10s, do I need 12s? And honestly, what you need to look at is not any of that stuff. What you're going to do is you find your space that you can put a subwoofer in. How much space are you willing to give up for the bass guides, right? And once you decide on that space, then you need to figure out the enclosure that you're going to build for that space, or buy for that space, or have built for that space, and how much airspace you can get in that enclosure, if it needs to be ported or not, depending on how much power you're sending back there. Sealed enclosures tend to be less efficient. They're not as loud. They also tend to be a little cleaner, a little tighter. The bass is not as boomy. If you're not into the crazy amounts of bass and you just want a good bottom end for your music, if you just want a good solid bottom end and nice and clean, then sealed enclosure is totally fine. If you want it to be a little louder, if you like a little bit more bass to dominate your music a little bit more, and you want to be a lot warmer, a lot more bassy in your music, you like the modern country with a good hard driving bass in it, rap, stuff like that, you're probably going to want a ported box. Having said that, they both can do the other thing. But once you decide on the box, and you decide on whether you want it ported or sealed, then you see how much airspace you have to work with, how much physical space you have to work with, because you only got so much room to put the magnet and the structure of the woofer in there, and plus different woofers are going to require different amounts of airspace. So once you find the box, you find the port, you got the physical dimensions you can work with and the airspace requirements that you can work with, then you decide whether you want 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 18, 21. It goes on and on. It's not about, you don't build the box for the speaker, you build the speaker for the box. You build the box for the car, and you build the speaker for the box. Because the one thing that you can't change is the car. Everything else you can decide on. You can manipulate them all that stuff. But the car is a hard, locked-in factor. So you're building the box for the car, and you're getting a speaker that works in that box. The most important component in whether a subwoofer is going to sound good or not is the enclosure, not the subwoofer. It has to be matched. Your subwoofer needs to be matched to that enclosure, and that enclosure needs to be able to fit in the space that you've allotted in your car. It's all about the enclosure. Yeah. Anyway, I know this is not a video where I'm telling you, hey man, go buy the Scar Audio this or the Sundown Audio that. I'm just giving you the basics on how to decide on the direction and some tips on what to do whenever you're building, designing, building, and installing your system. How to prioritize your thoughts, how to prioritize the money, the labor, and figure out what you want to accomplish and what you're going to pay someone else to do for you. Um, Hopefully this was helpful, guys. Uh, Hopefully this helped some of you guys out. If it did, be sure and leave comments down below. If you disagree with anything that I said, or if you want to add to anything that I've said, leave the comments down below. If if you have an opinion and you think everyone else should know about it, that's what I do. Make a YouTube channel, or just add it in the comments below, or both, or link. Tell me about what's on your YouTube channel. I'll go check you out too, man. We'll learn from each other. And I want to stress that I am a car audio enthusiast. I have been an audio enthusiast since I was about 5 or 6 years old. And I have been messing with audio as long as I can remember being alive. And I have been messing with car audio since before I was able to drive. I had a car that I wasn't allowed to drive, and I was putting all kinds of crazy audio stuff in there. I have been doing this a very long time, but only as an enthusiast. I am not a car audio professional. I am not a professional installer. I'm not a professional, acoustic engineer. I'm not any of those things. I'm someone who's messed with it quite a long time. I absorb information as much as I can, and I like to learn new things. That's what they call an enthusiast. That's why my channel is called Car Audio Enthusiast, not Car Audio Professional. You guys are enthusiasts too. Anyway, I'm done with this crazy bonkers sideways video today, and I'm just going to let it go for what it is because, yeah. Peace, guys.